Now let's begin. The house was dark when Eric McKenzie pulled into the driveway at 0300 hours. 3 days early. The deployment had been cut short after a diplomatic resolution nobody saw coming, and he'd caught the first transport out of Kabul. 16 hours of flying, another 2 of processing at Fort Bragg, and then the 9-hour drive home to rural Pennsylvania. He was bone-tired, but the thought of seeing his daughter Emma's face had kept him awake through all of it. 6 months. That's how long he'd been gone this time. Emma was 7 now. He'd missed her birthday by 2 weeks. The guilt gnawed at him during every patrol, every mission. But this was his last deployment. He'd already submitted his papers. After 12 years in the Rangers, Eric was coming home for good. He killed the engine and sat for a moment, savoring the stillness. No mortars, no gunfire, just crickets and the distant sound of wind through the pines. The house looked exactly as he'd left it. The blue shutters Brenda had insisted on, the flower boxes that were probably dead now in late autumn, the tire swing hanging from the oak tree in the front yard. Eric grabbed his duffel and moved quietly to the front door. He wanted to surprise them. Brenda would probably be asleep, but maybe Emma had a nightmare and was up. She used to crawl into bed with him when she was scared. The thought made him smile. The door was unlocked. That was the first thing that felt wrong. He'd told Brenda 100 times to lock it, especially when he was deployed. Eric pushed it open slowly, his training taking over. The house was too quiet. Not the peaceful quiet of sleep, something else. He moved through the living room. Dishes in the sink. Mail scattered on the counter. Brenda's purse on the table. He climbed the stairs, each step careful and deliberate. Their bedroom door was open. Brenda was there, sprawled across the bed in the clothes she'd worn that day, one arm hanging off the edge. An empty wine bottle on the nightstand. Eric's jaw tightened. He moved to Emma's room, pushing open the door decorated with princess stickers she'd picked out before he left. Empty. The bed was made. Her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hopper's, the one she'd slept with since she was 2, was gone. Her shoes weren't by the door. Eric was back in the bedroom in 3 strides. He shook Brenda's shoulder, harder than he meant to. She came awake with a start, eyes unfocused. Eric? What? You're not supposed to be. Where's Emma? Brenda blinked, trying to process. What time is it? Where is our daughter? His voice was flat, controlled. The voice he used when things were going wrong on a mission and panic would get people killed. She's at my mother's. I told you in the email. What email? I didn't get any email. Why is she at your mother's at 3 in the morning? It's 3? Brenda sat up, running her hands through her hair. She's been there since Tuesday. Mom's been watching her while I had some things to handle. Work stuff. Eric stared at his wife. In 12 years of marriage, he'd learned to read people. It was a survival skill. And right now, every instinct he had was screaming that something was wrong. Brenda wouldn't meet his eyes. Her hands were shaking, and not just from being woken up. I'm going to get her. Eric, it's the middle of the night. But he was already moving. Back down the stairs, out the door, into his truck. Brenda's mother lived 40 minutes away, deeper into the mountains. Myrtle Savage had never liked him. The feeling was mutual. She was a hard woman, cold in a way that had nothing to do with the Pennsylvania winters. She ran some kind of retreat center on her property, religious counseling, she called it. Eric called it a grift. The roads were empty. He pushed the truck harder than he should have, taking the mountain curves fast. His hands were steady on the wheel, but his mind was racing. Tuesday. Emma had been there since Tuesday. For days. Why hadn't Brenda mentioned it in their last video call? Why had she sent their daughter to her mother's? Myrtle's property was set back from the road, a long gravel drive leading to a sprawling farmhouse. Lights were on. That was the second wrong thing. Nobody was up at this hour. Eric parked and got out. The front door opened before he reached it. Myrtle Savage stood in the doorway, backlit by the harsh interior lights. She was a tall woman, rail-thin, with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a long nightgown and an expression that might have been concern on anyone else's face. On hers, it looked like calculation. Eric, Brenda called. Said you were coming. Where's Emma? She's sleeping. You shouldn't. He pushed past her. The house smelled like bleach and something else, something organic and wrong underneath. Emma, you'll wake the other children. Myrtle's voice was sharp. Eric stopped. What other children? I run a program here. Troubled children. Their parents send them to me for discipline and spiritual guidance. He'd known about the program, but had never paid it much attention. Now, Looking at Myrtle's face, something cold settled in his stomach. Where is Emma? She's in the backyard, getting some reflection time. Eric was moving before she finished the sentence. Through the kitchen, out the back door. The yard stretched into darkness, bordered by woods. He could see shapes in the moonlight, structures that looked like small sheds or outbuildings. Emma. His voice echoed off the trees. A small sound. Crying. He ran toward it, pulling out his phone for the flashlight. The beam caught something that made him stop dead. A hole in the ground, maybe 4 feet deep, 3 feet wide. And standing in it, shivering in her pajamas, was Emma. Daddy. Her voice was so small. Eric was in the hole in seconds, lifting her out. She was ice cold, her pajamas soaked through with mud and dew. She wrapped her arms around his neck and wouldn't let go. I've got you, baby. I've got you. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around her. She was shaking violently. How long have you been out here? I don't know. Grandma said. She said bad girls sleep in graves. That I need to learn. That I need to. She was sobbing now, the words barely coherent. White-hot rage flooded through Eric, but he forced it down. Emma needed him calm. He needed to get her warm and safe. Then he would deal with Myrtle. Daddy, don't look in the other hole. Emma's whisper cut through his thoughts. Please don't look. He turned, and his flashlight beam swept across the yard. There, 20 feet away. Another hole, this one covered with boards. Emma, I need you to close your eyes, okay? Can you do that for me? She nodded against his chest, squeezing her eyes shut. Eric carried her toward the house, but stopped by the second hole. He had to know, had to understand what he was dealing with. Using one hand while holding Emma with the other, he pulled the boards aside. The smell hit him first, decay, earth, and something chemical. He shone the light down. Bones. Small bones. A skull that was unmistakably human and unmistakably a child's. Scraps of fabric. And something else, a metal tag, like a dog tag, with a name stamped on it, Sarah Chun. Eric's training kicked in, overriding the horror. This was a crime scene. Multiple crimes. He took 3 photos with his phone, making sure to capture the tag clearly. Then he replaced the boards and carried Emma toward the house. Myrtle was waiting in the kitchen with a cup of tea, as if this was a normal visit. She's being dramatic. It's only been an hour. The cold teaches them. Sit down. Eric's voice could have cut glass. Don't move. Don't speak. Don't even think about running, because I will hunt you down. He carried Emma to the truck, started it, and cranked the heat. She was still shaking. Baby, listen to me. You're safe now. I'm taking you somewhere warm, okay? Can you tell me who Sarah Chun is? Emma's eyes went wide. You looked. I told you not to look. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry, but I need to know. Who is she? She was here last year. She was bad too. Grandma said she ran away, but Emma started crying again. I heard her screaming one night, and then she was gone. And Grandma said if I was bad, I'd end up like the girls who run away. Eric pulled out his phone and called the one person he knew he could trust. Donald Gillespie picked up on the third ring. Gillespie. Don, it's Eric McKenzie. I need you to get to 4782 Mountain Laurel Road right now. Bring backup. Multiple backup. And call the state police. Eric? Thought you were deployed. What's going on? I just found a dead kid in a hole on my mother-in-law's property. There might be more. Silence on the other end. Then, I'm 10 minutes out. Stay on the line. Eric looked at the house. Myrtle was in the window, watching. She didn't look worried. She looked angry. That told him everything he needed to know. She thought she could get away with this. That she had before. Don, listen carefully. The property owner is Myrtle Savage. She runs some kind of religious discipline program for kids. My daughter was in a hole in her backyard. Said she'd been there for an hour, but I don't know if that's true. There's another hole with remains. The victim might be a Sarah Chun. Jesus Christ. There might be other kids on the property right now. Myrtle said something about other children. We need to get them out. I'm calling CPS and the FBI. Eric, you need to get your daughter out of there. Already done. I'm in my truck with her. But Don, I'm not leaving until I know every kid here is safe. Do not go back in that house. That's an order. But Eric was already moving. He turned to Emma. Baby, I need you to lock the doors and stay in the truck. Keep the heat on. I'm going to get the other kids, okay? I'll be right back. Daddy, no. I promise I'll be careful. But those kids need help, just like you did. He kissed her forehead. Lock the doors. Anyone but me or a police officer comes near this truck, you lay on the horn. Understand. She nodded, terrified but trusting him. Eric walked back to the house. The training was fully engaged now. He wasn't a father anymore. He was a soldier clearing a hostile building. Myrtle was still in the kitchen. She stood when he entered. You had no right to. Where are the children? They're sleeping. You're overreacting. That hole is a therapeutic technique. It teaches humility, and Eric crossed the distance between them in 2 steps. He didn't touch her, but she stumbled back anyway. I'm going to ask you one more time. Where are the children? Upstairs. But they're fine. They're here because their parents can't control them. I'm helping. He was already moving. Up the stairs, down a hallway. The first door was locked from the outside. He broke it open with one kick. 3 children, all under 10, sleeping on thin mattresses on the floor. No blankets. No heat. The window was barred from the outside. Wake up. Eric's voice was gentle but firm. My name is Eric. I'm a soldier, and I'm here to help you. Police are coming. You're going to be okay. They stared at him with the kind of hollow eyes he'd only seen in war zones. One little boy spoke up. Are you taking us home? Yes. Right now? Come on. He shepherded them downstairs. Myrtle tried to block the door. You can't do this. Their parents signed contracts. Their parents signed contracts with someone who was burying children in her backyard. Get out of my way. She didn't move. Eric picked her up bodily and set her aside. She weighed nothing. He got the 3 children outside just as headlights appeared down the drive. For police cars, lights flashing. Donald Gillespie got out first, a big man in his 50s with a weathered face and kind eyes. He took one look at the children and got on his radio. We need ambulances. Multiple juveniles, possible abuse and neglect. The next 2 hours were chaos. More police arrived. FBI agents. Child Protective Services. They found 6 more children in a locked basement room. All of them were malnourished, bruised, terrified. All of them had stories about the holes in the backyard, about being punished, about children who ran away. They found 3 more graves. Eric sat in his truck with Emma wrapped in a blanket, watching as investigators swarmed the property. Myrtle had been arrested, still insisting she was helping troubled children, that the parents had signed contracts, that everything she did was legal discipline. Donald came over around dawn. They're going to need statements from you and Emma. Not today. She needs to be seen by doctors first. But soon. What about the other graves? One's been identified already. Sarah Chun, missing from Pittsburgh last year. 9 years old. Parents thought she was at a summer camp. Donald's face was grim. The other 2, were working on it. Eric, how did you know to come here tonight? I didn't. I came home early from deployment. Brenda said Emma was here. I knew something was wrong. Brenda. Donald's expression changed. We need to talk to her too. Did she know what was happening here? Eric looked at his friend. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Emma stirred against his chest. Daddy? Can we go home now? Not that home, baby. We're going to a hotel, okay? Somewhere safe and warm, with room service and movies. And you'll stay with me? I'm never leaving you again. I promise. As Eric drove away, the sun was rising over the mountains. In his rearview mirror, he could see the police lights still flashing, the search teams combing the property. He thought about the parents of those children, getting phone calls right now that would destroy them. He thought about Sarah Chin's parents, finally getting answers after a year of not knowing. And he thought about Brenda, asleep in their bed, who had sent their daughter to that house, who had known Myrtle ran a discipline program for troubled children but had sent Emma there anyway. Emma wasn't troubled. She was a sweet, smart, happy kid. So why had Brenda sent her to Myrtle's? Eric's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He'd been trained to fight enemies overseas. But now he realized the real enemy had been here all along, hiding in plain sight. And he was going to make sure every single person responsible paid for what they'd done, starting with his wife. The hotel room was warm and bright, nothing like the cold darkness of Myrtle's property. Eric had gotten a suite with 2 beds, and Emma had finally fallen asleep around noon after a doctor from the hospital came to check her over. Mild hypothermia, bruises, trauma. The doctor had been gentle but thorough, documenting everything, taking photos of the injuries. Evidence. She'll need therapy, the doctor had said quietly at the door. What she experienced, children don't just get over that. Now Emma slept, and Eric sat by the window with his laptop, running searches he should have run years ago. Myrtle Savage. The New Beginnings Spiritual Retreat Center. How had he never looked into this? Because you trusted Brenda, a voice in his head answered. Because she was your wife, and you believed her when she said her mother was helping troubled kids find God. The search results made his stomach turn. The website looked professional. Testimonials from grateful parents, photos of smiling children, Bible verses about discipline and redemption. But when Eric dug deeper into forums and review sites, he found different stories. One parent wrote, "We sent our daughter there for 3 months. When she came back, she wouldn't speak, just cried and had nightmares. We asked what happened, and she said if she told, they'd put her in the ground. We thought she was being dramatic. Now I wish we'd listened." Another, "My son was there for a week before I pulled him out. He'd lost 10 pounds and had marks all over his body. Myrtle Savage said it was spiritual discipline and that we were interfering with his salvation. I called the police, but they said it was a family matter." Eric kept digging. He found a news article from 3 years ago, an investigation by the county. Child Services had visited the property after a complaint. They'd found nothing wrong. The complaint had been dismissed as a disgruntled parent. He pulled up the investigator's name, Christina Slaughter. Then he searched for her. She'd retired last year. Bought a house in Florida. A nice house, way too nice for a county social worker's pension. Eric sat back. The pieces were starting to come together, and he didn't like the picture they formed. Myrtle had been doing this for years. Multiple children had been hurt, and at least 4 had died. But she'd kept operating because someone was protecting her. His phone rang. Derek Mullen's name flashed on the screen. "Brother." Derek's voice was steady, calm. They'd served together for 8 years. "Don called me. Said you found some heavy shit." "Yeah." Eric glanced at Emma, still sleeping. "You still in Virginia?" "I can be in Pennsylvania in 6 hours. You need me?" "I need to know who I can trust." "Don's good. But there's something bigger here, Derek. People were protecting what was happening. A social worker got paid off. Probably cops too. What do you need? Can you do some digging?" "Quietly. Myrtle Savage, Christina Slaughter, anyone connected to that property. Follow the money. On it." "Eric, how's Emma?" "Alive. That's all that matters right now." "And Brenda?" Eric looked out the window. "I'm handling that today." After he hung up, he sat for a long moment, thinking. Then he opened his email and started writing. Subject, resignation. After 12 years, he was done. Emma needed him more than the army did. His phone buzzed. "Brenda, where are you?" "The police were here. They asked about Mom." "What's going on?" Eric didn't respond. Instead, he pulled up the photos he'd taken of the grave with Sarah Chen's remains. He looked at them for a long time, memorizing every detail. Then he opened a new document and started writing down everything he'd seen, everything Emma had told him, every detail he could remember. This was going to court. He needed to be ready. Around 3 p.m., Emma woke up. She looked around the unfamiliar room, panicked for a moment, then saw Eric and relaxed. "Hey, baby. How are you feeling?" "Tired." She sat up slowly. "Is Grandma in jail?" "Yes." "Good." Emma's voice was hard in a way that made Eric's heart break. 7 years old, and she already knew that some people were evil. "Daddy? Are we going back to Mom?" That was the question, wasn't it? Eric came over and sat on the edge of her bed. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth, okay? Even if you think it might hurt my feelings." Emma nodded. "Did Mom know what Grandma was doing?" "With the holes." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "She said I was being bad, that I wasn't listening, that Grandma could teach me to be good. She drove me there Tuesday and told Grandma I needed to learn respect." Eric felt something cold and final settle in his chest. "What did you do that was so bad?" "I wouldn't eat my vegetables. And I talked back when she told me to clean my room." Emma started crying. "I didn't mean to be bad, Daddy. I just wanted you to come home." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight while she cried. Over her head, his face was stone. Brenda had sent their daughter to be abused, possibly killed, because she wouldn't eat vegetables. Because she talked back. Normal kid stuff. Things you handled with timeouts or taking away dessert, not with a woman who buried children in her backyard. You weren't bad, Emma. You hear me? You were being a normal kid. What Mom did, that was wrong. What Grandma did was evil. But you did nothing wrong. Can I stay with you? You're going to stay with me forever. I promise. There was a knock at the door. Eric checked the peephole. Donald Gillespie. He let him in. How is she? Donald asked quietly. She'll survive. What did you find? Donald pulled out a notepad. 4 graves so far. Sarah Chun, we already knew about. The second one is Marcus Wright, 10 years old, missing from Philadelphia 2 years ago. Parents were told he was at a boarding school. The third is a girl, maybe 8 or 9. We're still working on identification. The fourth. Donald paused. The fourth is recent. Very recent. A boy named Tyler Brennan. He was only there for a week. How many kids total went through that place? We're trying to figure that out. Myrtle's contract claims she's had over 100 children through her program in the last 5 years. Most of them left alive. But we're checking every name against missing persons reports. What about Christina Slaughter? Donald's expression darkened. How'd you know about her? She investigated the place 3 years ago. Found nothing. Then retired and bought a house in Florida she shouldn't be able to afford. FBI's looking into her now. Eric, there's something else. We found financial records. Myrtle was charging parents $50,000 for a 3-month program. Most paid cash. We're talking millions of dollars over the years. Where's the money? That's what we can't figure out. Her bank accounts show regular deposits, but nothing like that kind of cash. It's going somewhere. Eric thought about that. She had a partner. Or partners. Someone who made this look legitimate. Someone who kept the authorities from looking too close. That's what the FBI thinks too. They're going through her phone records now. But Eric, Donald hesitated. They want to talk to Brenda. Your wife had to know something. She knew. Eric's voice was flat. Emma told me. Brenda drove her there on Tuesday. Told Myrtle that Emma needed to learn respect. Donald looked sick. I'm sorry. Don't be. Just make sure everyone involved goes down. I don't care who they are or what connections they have. Everyone. After Donald left, Eric made a decision. He picked up his phone and called Melody Hendricks, Brenda's sister. She answered on the second ring. Eric? Oh my God. Brenda said you were home. Are you okay? She said something about Mom being arrested. Melody, I need you to listen carefully. Your mother was running an abuse camp. She was torturing children. 4 of them are dead. Emma was in a hole in the backyard when I found her. Silence. Then what? No, that's not. Mom helps troubled kids. She's strict, but she would never. I saw the graves myself. The FBI is digging them up right now. Sarah Chun, Marcus Wright, 2 others. All children under 12. All dead because of what your mother did to them. I don't. Eric, this has to be a mistake. It's not. And Melody, I need to know something. Did you ever see anything? Anything that made you uncomfortable? Anything that seemed wrong? I haven't been to the property in years. Mom and I had a falling out. She said I was raising my kids too soft, that they needed discipline. I told her to stay away from us. Melody's voice was shaking. Brenda still talked to her though. Said I was overreacting. Brenda sent Emma there 4 days ago. No, Brenda wouldn't. She loves Emma. She sent her to be punished because Emma wouldn't eat her vegetables and talk back. Another long silence. When Melody spoke again, her voice was different. Harder. Where's Emma now? With me. Safe. Keep her away from Brenda. I mean it, Eric. I love my sister, but if she knew what Mom was doing and sent Emma anyway. Melody took a shaky breath. What can I do? How can I help? Eric looked at his daughter, sleeping again. Just tell the truth when they ask. All of it. Don't protect anyone. I won't. Eric, I'm so sorry. If I'd known. Just make sure it counts for something now. After he hung up, Eric pulled out his laptop again. Derek had sent him an encrypted email with preliminary findings. Myrtle's financial records showed payments to several people. One name stood out. Herman Savage, listed as Myrtle's brother. He lived in town, worked as a... Eric stared at the screen. Herman Savage was a county judge. The next morning, Eric took Emma to a safe house arranged by Donald. It was a small apartment above a bookstore in town, owned by a retired cop who owed Donald a favor. Emma would stay there with a female officer named Janet while Eric dealt with what came next. I don't want you to go, Emma said, clutching Mr. Hopper's. I'll be back tonight. I promise. Janet's nice, and you'll be safe here. The door has 3 locks, and there's a police officer downstairs. Okay. Emma nodded, but she looked small and scared. Eric knelt down to her level. Baby, I need to make sure the people who hurt you can't hurt anyone else. That's what I'm going to do today. Can you be brave for me? Will you bring Mom? Eric's jaw tightened. Do you want to see Mom? Emma thought about it, then shook her head. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That's okay. You don't have to see anyone you don't want to. He kissed her forehead and left, his heart heavy. But as he drove across town, the heaviness turned to cold, focused anger. He had targets now. Myrtle was in jail, but she was just the beginning. Herman Savage, Christina Slaughter, anyone else who had enabled this nightmare. And Brenda. He arrived at his house at 9 a.m. Brenda's car was in the driveway. He sat for a moment, preparing himself. Then he walked in. Brenda was in the kitchen, looking haggard. She hadn't slept. When she saw him, she stood up quickly. Eric. Finally. The police won't tell me anything. They took Mom. They're saying but it's ridiculous. You have to tell them. Where's Emma? I don't know. I assumed she was with you. Eric, what is going on? Why are you looking at me like that? I'm trying to decide if my wife is stupid or evil. Brenda's face went white. What? You sent our daughter to a woman who tortures children, who has murdered at least 4 kids that we know of. You drove her there on Tuesday and told Myrtle she needed to learn respect. I didn't. It's not like that. Mom's program is strict, but it works. She helps troubled kids. Emma isn't troubled. Eric's voice cracked like a whip. She's 7 years old. She wouldn't eat her vegetables. That's not troubled, Brenda. That's normal. She was getting out of control. Talking back, not listening. So you sent her to be buried alive in a hole in the ground? Brenda's mouth opened and closed. That's not. Mom wouldn't. I pulled Emma out of that hole myself. It was 2 a.m. and 40 degrees. She'd been standing in mud and ice water for over an hour. Crying. Terrified. She told me if I looked in the other hole. Eric stopped, forcing himself to stay calm. There was a dead kid in the other hole, Brenda. A 9-year-old girl named Sarah Chun. Her bones were still there. No. Brenda sat down hard. No, that's not possible. Mom said kids who run away from the program sometimes spread rumors, but did you ever visit? Did you ever actually see what she was doing? Silence. Answer me. I trusted her. Brenda's voice was rising. She's my mother. She said the program was tough, but effective. That sometimes kids lie to get out of it. I believed her. Eric stared at his wife. When did you send Emma there? Tuesday. I already told you. Why Tuesday specifically? Brenda hesitated. She was having a bad week. Refusing to do homework, making a mess, talking back. I was stressed with work, and I couldn't handle it. So I called Mom. You couldn't handle it. So you sent our daughter to a torture camp. It's not a torture camp. She helps children. 4 dead kids say otherwise. Eric pulled out his phone and showed her one of the photos from the graves. Brenda looked at it and turned green. She ran to the sink and vomited. When she came back, wiping her mouth, her face was ashen. I didn't know. Eric, I swear I didn't know. But you suspected something was wrong, didn't you? No. Melody cut your mother off years ago. Said she was too harsh with kids. You kept Emma away from Myrtle most of the time. What? Brenda's hands were shaking. Mom could be intense. I thought limited exposure was fine. That a few days at a time would teach Emma discipline without what? Without breaking her. The words came out as a whisper. Eric felt something inside him shatter. You knew she could break our daughter. You knew your mother was dangerous. And you sent Emma there anyway. I thought I could control it. I told Mom to be gentle, to just scare her a little. You can't be a little bit evil, Brenda. You can't torture someone a little bit. Eric was shouting now. Emma is traumatized. She has hypothermia and bruises, and she doesn't trust anyone. She asked if she has to see you again, and I didn't know what to tell her because her own mother sent her to hell. Brenda was crying. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was just so tired. You were gone, and she was so difficult, and I thought. You didn't think. That's the problem. Eric's voice went cold. Pack your things. You're moving out. This is my house too. I don't care. You're leaving. Today. And if you fight me on this, I will make sure everyone knows what you did. Your job, your friends, everyone. I will tell them that you sent your daughter to a woman who murdered children. I have rights. So did Emma. So did Sarah Chun and Marcus Wright and Tyler Brennan. They had the right not to be buried alive. Eric stepped closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to talk to a lawyer. You're going to agree to give me full custody. You're going to stay away from Emma unless she asks to see you. And you're going to cooperate completely with the FBI investigation into your mother. The FBI? Did you think this was just going to go away? Your mother murdered kids, Brenda. For money. Lots of money. And someone helped her cover it up. The FBI wants to know who. So you're going to tell them everything you know about her business, her contacts, her finances. Everything. I don't know anything about. Then you better start remembering. Because if you don't cooperate, you're going to be charged as an accessory. Brenda's face crumpled. I didn't know, Eric. I swear on my life. I didn't know she was killing children. But you knew she was hurting them. And you didn't care. Eric turned toward the door. You have until tomorrow to move out. If you're still here when I come back with Emma, I'm calling the cops. He left her there, crying in the kitchen of the house they'd bought together 8 years ago. The house where they'd brought Emma home from the hospital. The house where he'd thought they were building a life. All of it was ash now. Eric drove to meet Derek at a diner outside town. His friend was already there, laptop open, looking tired. You look like hell, Derek said. Feel worse. What did you find? Derek pulled out a folder. Herman Savage, Myrtle's brother. He's been a county judge for 15 years. Handles juvenile cases, family court. Guess what happens when parents complain about Myrtle's program? Let me guess. Cases get dismissed. Bingo. I found 6 complaints over the last 5 years. All of them went to Herman's court. All dismissed as family disputes or unfounded allegations. 3 of those kids are now missing. Eric's hands clenched. He knew. Gets better. Christina Slaughter, the social worker? She's Herman's ex-wife. They divorced 10 years ago, but I pulled their financial records. She's been getting regular payments from an LLC called New Beginnings Holdings. Guess who owns that LLC? Herman. And Myrtle. 50-50. The LLC has been collecting the fees from parents, laundering it through various accounts, then paying out to Myrtle, Herman, and Christina. We're talking about $3 million over 5 years. Eric sat back. So Herman provides legal protection, Christina handles any state investigations, and Myrtle runs the operation. That's the theory. FBI's building the case now. But Eric. Derek's expression turned serious. There might be more people involved. I found payments to a consulting firm that doesn't seem to exist. And there are gaps in the financial records. Money going out that we can't track. Who else could be involved? Don't know yet. But someone with enough pull to make sure no real investigations happened. Someone who could pressure local cops, maybe even state police. Eric thought about that. I need to talk to Don. See if he knows anyone who seemed too interested in shutting down questions about Myrtle. Be careful. If there are dirty cops involved, you don't know who to trust. I trust Don. Yeah, but does he trust everyone on his force? Derek closed his laptop. Eric, you need to let the FBI handle this. You've got Emma to think about. I'm thinking about Emma. I'm thinking about making sure everyone who hurt her pays. Everyone who enabled it. Everyone who turned a blind eye while kids died. Eric met his friend's gaze. Would you walk away? Derek sighed. No, but I'd be smart about it. And I'd watch my back. That's why I called you. They spent the next 2 hours going through documents. Eric was learning to read financial records the way he'd learned to read topographic maps in the Army, looking for patterns, anomalies, anything that didn't fit. And there were things that didn't fit. Large cash withdrawals from the LLC accounts every month. Always on the 15th. Always the same amount, $10,000. Going back 3 years. Protection money? Eric suggested. Maybe. Or paying someone for something. Could be anything from bribes to blackmail. Eric's phone rang. Donald. Talk to me. We got something. Myrtle's talking. Trying to cut a deal. She's claiming she was coerced. That someone forced her to keep running the program even when she wanted to stop. She's lying. Probably. But her lawyer's saying she has evidence. Names of people who were involved. She wants immunity in exchange for testimony. Don't give it to her. Not my call. That's FBI and prosecutor's office. But Eric, she mentioned Brenda. Said your wife knew more than she's saying. Eric closed his eyes. What exactly did she say? That Brenda helped recruit some of the families. That she'd identify kids who needed correction and recommend the program to their parents. Myrtle's claiming Brenda got a finder's fee for each referral. The diner seemed to tilt. How much? $5,000 per kid. Eric disconnected and stared at his phone. Brenda had sent Emma to Myrtle. But according to Myrtle, she'd also sent other people's children. For money. Derek was watching him. What is it? Brenda wasn't just a victim of her mother's manipulation. She was part of it. Shit. Yeah. Eric stood up. I need to go. Where? To have another conversation with my wife. And this time, she's going to tell me the whole truth. He found Brenda at her sister's house. Melody answered the door, her face hard. She's in the kitchen. And Eric? Whatever you're going to do, she deserves it. Brenda was sitting at Melody's table with a cup of coffee. She looked up when Eric walked in, and her face went pale. I was just leaving. Sit down. Eric. Sit. Down. She sat. Melody stayed in the doorway, arms crossed. Eric leaned against the counter. The FBI talked to your mother. She's trying to make a deal. Said you helped her recruit families. That you got $5,000 for every kid you sent her way. Is that true? Brenda's silence was answer enough. How many? Eric's voice was deadly quiet. I don't know. Maybe 20? Over 3 years. 20 kids. You sent 20 kids to be tortured. For money. It wasn't supposed to be torture. Mom said it was a tough love program. That the kids needed discipline. The parents were desperate. So you exploited desperate parents and traumatized their children for $100,000. Melody made a sound of disgust. Brenda, what the hell is wrong with you? You don't understand. We needed the money. Eric was deployed, his salary wasn't enough, and I had debt from before we got married. We had enough. Eric shouted. We had a house, food, everything we needed. You're telling me you sold kids for what? A new car? Vacations? Brenda was crying again. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't think anyone would get hurt. Mom said it was safe. 4 kids are dead. 4. How is that safe? Eric was shaking with rage. Did you know about the graves? No. I swear, I didn't know about that. When Mom told me about kids running away, I believed her. I thought they just left. You thought troubled kids just wandered off into the mountains and their parents didn't care? You didn't think that was suspicious. Brenda had no answer. Eric pulled out his phone. The FBI is going to want to talk to you. The families you recruited are going to want answers. And I'm going to make sure every single person knows what you did. Please. Brenda reached for him. Please, Eric. I made a mistake. I was stupid and greedy, and I'm so sorry. But I'm still Emma's mother. I love her. You sent her to a torture camp. For $5,000. No. I didn't take money for Emma. She's my daughter. I just thought. You thought you could get away with it one more time. You thought she'd come back scared straight, and you'd go back to sending other people's kids for money. Eric stepped back from her outstretched hand. Stay away from us. Both of us. Don't call, don't text, don't try to see Emma. If I see you anywhere near her, I will have you arrested. You can't keep me from my daughter. Watch me. You're about to be charged with child endangerment, conspiracy, and probably trafficking. By the time this is over, you'll be lucky if you're not in prison. The only thing keeping you out right now is that you're cooperating with the FBI. Eric headed for the door. Melody, thank you for being honest. I'm sorry your family is imploding. I'm sorry I didn't see this coming, Melody said quietly. I should have pushed harder. Stayed in contact with Mom. Maybe I could have. This isn't on you. Don't blame yourself for other people's evil. As Eric drove away, his phone rang. Unknown number. Eric McKenzie? Yeah. This is Agent Frank Morrison, FBI. I need you to come in for an interview. Today, if possible. I can be there in 20 minutes. Good. And Mr. McKenzie? Bring your lawyer. We're going to be talking about some serious charges. Eric's hand tightened on the wheel. Against who? Everyone. We're building a RICO case. Racketeering, conspiracy, child trafficking, murder. This is bigger than your mother-in-law. We're going after everyone involved. Good. I should warn you. Your wife is a target. We believe she was complicit in recruiting children for the program. If she cooperates, we might be able to reduce charges, but she's looking at prison time. I don't care what happens to her. Just make sure you get everyone. We will. But Mr. McKenzie? Watch your back. The people involved in this have money and connections. They're not going to go down easy. After hanging up, Eric made one more call. To a lawyer friend from his unit who now worked at a big firm in Philadelphia. Tony Pena. Tony, it's Eric McKenzie. I need help. I need the best family lawyer you know, and I need someone who can handle a federal case. What kind of federal case? Child trafficking, racketeering, murder. And I need to make sure I get custody of my daughter. Jesus, Eric. What happened? How much time do you have? For you? All the time in the world. Start talking. As Eric laid out the whole nightmare, he felt something shifting inside him. The rage was still there, burning hot and pure. But underneath it was something colder. Something calculating. The army had taught him how to fight, how to plan, how to execute complex operations against entrenched enemies. He'd led missions in some of the most hostile territory on Earth. And now he was going to use every skill he had to destroy the people who'd hurt his daughter. Not just Myrtle, not just Brenda. Everyone. Every person who'd turned a blind eye, taken a bribe, enabled the torture and murder of children. They thought they were safe because they had money and connections. Because they'd gotten away with it for years. They were wrong. Eric McKenzie was coming for them. And he didn't lose. The FBI office was cold and sterile, all fluorescent lights and beige walls. Eric sat across from Agent Morrison and another agent, a woman named Chun. Appropriate name given what he'd found. "I'm Agent Sarah Chun," she said, as if reading his mind. Sarah was my niece. Eric's expression didn't change, but inside, he felt a sharp pang of sympathy. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you. I want you to know this is personal for me. I'm going to make sure everyone responsible pays." Her eyes were hard as diamonds. Starting with Myrtle Savage. Morrison pulled out a recorder. "Mr. Mackenzie, we need to get your statement on record. Walk us through everything that happened from the moment you arrived home." Eric did. Every detail. Finding Emma in the hole, the other graves, Brenda's confession about sending her there, the evidence of financial payments. He held nothing back. When he finished, Morrison leaned back. "Your wife claims she didn't know about the deaths. Do you believe her?" "I don't know. Maybe she was willfully ignorant. But she knew kids were being hurt, and she kept sending them anyway. For money." "Yeah." Agent Shin spoke up. "We've identified 17 families that your wife referred to Myrtle's program. Of those 17 children, 3 are dead. 4 are still missing. The others, we're interviewing them now. The stories are consistent. Extreme physical punishment, food deprivation, psychological abuse. 1 kid was kept in a hole for 3 days." Eric felt sick. "Where are the families now?" "We're tracking them down. Most thought their kids were at a legitimate boarding school. Some knew it was harsh, but thought that's what their kids needed. A few." Morrison paused. "A few seemed to have known exactly what was happening and didn't care. What happens to them? Depends on what we can prove. Child endangerment at minimum. If we can show they knew kids were dying and sent their own anyway, we're looking at conspiracy to commit murder." "And Brenda? Your wife is cooperating. She's given us names, details about the financial setup, information about Herman Savage's involvement. In exchange, we're recommending reduced charges. But she's still looking at 5 to 10 years. Eric nodded. He felt nothing about that. No satisfaction, no regret. Just emptiness where his marriage used to be. "What about Herman?" he asked. Morrison's jaw tightened. "That's where it gets complicated. Herman Savage is a sitting judge with a lot of friends. We need an airtight case before we move on him. We're building it, but it takes time." "How much time?" "Weeks. Maybe months. Kids died while you're building your case." "I know that." Morrison's frustration broke through. "But if we move too fast and he walks on a technicality, he gets away with it forever. I won't let that happen." Agent Shin put a hand on Morrison's arm, calming him. Then she looked at Eric. "We will get him. I promise you. But we have to do this right." "What can I do?" "Nothing. Stay out of it. Focus on your daughter. Let us handle the investigation." Eric didn't respond to that. He had no intention of staying out of it. After the interview, he met with Tony Pena and the family lawyer Tony had recommended, a sharp woman named Margaret Vance. They sat in a conference room and strategized. "The good news is you'll get custody," Margaret said. "With Brenda facing criminal charges and admitting to child endangerment, no judge will give her custody. The question is whether she gets visitation. Emma doesn't want to see her. Emma's preference will matter, but she's 7. The court might order supervised visitation anyway. Over my dead body." "Eric." Tony's voice was gentle but firm. "Let Margaret handle the legal strategy. If you push too hard, it could backfire. Brenda sent our daughter to be tortured. For money. There's no scenario where she deserves to see Emma." "I agree," Margaret said. "And that's the argument we'll make. But we have to follow the process. File for divorce, file for custody, document everything. Build a case that's so overwhelming no judge can rule against us." "How long?" "The divorce will take months. Custody might be faster given the circumstances. I'll file emergency motions tomorrow." "Do it." After they left, Eric sat in his truck, thinking. The FBI was building their case. His lawyers were building theirs. Everyone was following the process, playing by the rules. But Eric wasn't bound by the same rules. He was a civilian now, a father protecting his daughter. And sometimes, justice couldn't wait for the courts. He pulled out his phone and called Derek. "I need you to do something for me. It's not legal." "I figured. What do you need?" "Herman Savage. I need everything on him. Phone records, financial records, emails. Everything that proves what he did. The FBI's already getting that through warrants. I don't want to wait for warrants. I want it now." Silence on the other end. "Then, you know what you're asking?" "Yeah. If we get caught." "We won't. You taught me how to do this in Baghdad, remember? We're just applying those skills here. Another pause. When do you want to start? Tonight. They met at Derek's motel room with a laptop and equipment that definitely wasn't civilian grade. Derek had connections from his army days, people who specialized in electronic intelligence. Herman's security is decent but not great, Derek said, typing. Standard home Wi-Fi, password protected. I can crack it remotely, but it'll take a few hours. Do it. What about his phone? Harder. If he's smart, he uses encrypted messaging. But guys like him always think they're untouchable. They get sloppy. While Derek worked, Eric researched. Herman Savage had been a judge for 15 years. Before that, he was a prosecutor. Married twice, divorced twice. No kids. His house was a modest colonial in a nice neighborhood. Not the kind of place you'd expect from someone who'd made $3 million from child trafficking. He's hiding the money somewhere, Eric said. Offshore accounts, probably. Caymans, Switzerland. Places the FBI can track, but it takes time. We don't have time. Derek looked at him. What's the plan here, Eric? Let's say we get everything. What are you going to do with it? Make sure he can't escape justice. Make sure if the FBI case falls apart, he still goes down. How? I haven't figured that part out yet. They worked until 3 a.m. By then, Derek had access to Herman's home network, his email, and his cloud storage. What they found made Eric's blood run cold. Spreadsheets listing every child who'd gone through Myrtle's program. Detailed notes about which ones were problematic. Invoices for disposal services. Emails discussing inventory reduction and minimizing exposure. These people had reduced children to line items in a ledger. One email from Herman to Myrtle, dated 6 months ago. The Chun girl is asking too many questions. Handle it. The reply from Myrtle. Taken care of. No loose ends. Sarah Chun had died because she asked questions. Send all of this to me, Eric said. Encrypted. Multiple backups. What are you going to do? Insurance. If something happens to me, if the FBI case falls apart, if these people find a way to walk, this goes public. Every news outlet, every social media platform, every parent whose kid went through that program. I'll make sure the whole world knows what they did. Derek nodded. You're playing a dangerous game. They played a dangerous game with kids' lives. Now it's my turn. Over the next week, Eric built his case. Not for a court, for the court of public opinion. He contacted journalists, gave them background on the story without revealing his illegal evidence gathering. He connected with parents whose kids had gone through the program. He documented everything. Emma was getting better slowly. Therapy helped. She could talk about what happened without crying now. The nightmares were less frequent. But she still flinched at unexpected noises, and she refused to be alone in a room. She'll heal, the therapist said. But it'll take time. And she'll always have scars. Eric knew about scars. He had plenty from his army service. The visible ones from shrapnel and bullets, and the invisible ones from watching friends die. You didn't get over trauma. You learned to live with it. But he'd be damned if Emma had to live with it while the people responsible walked free. The break in the case came from an unexpected source. One of the families Brenda had reached out to Eric directly. Ralph Terrell, a single father whose son had gone through Myrtle's program 2 years ago. My boy came back changed, Ralph said over coffee. Quiet. Scared. He won't talk about what happened, but he has nightmares. Screams about holes in graves. I didn't know what it meant until I saw the news. Did you know what the program was before you sent him? Ralph looked ashamed. I knew it was harsh. Your wife said it was tough love, that my son needed discipline. She showed me testimonials from other parents saying their kids came back better. I was desperate. Noah was acting out after his mother died, and I didn't know how to help him. Did you pay Myrtle directly? No. I paid a consulting firm. Behavioral Solutions, LLC. They handled all the paperwork. Eric's pulse quickened. That was the name Derek had found. The firm with no real office, no employees, just a P.O. box and bank account. Do you still have the paperwork? Yeah. Why? Because I think that firm is the key to everything. He was right. With Ralph's documentation, they traced Behavioral Solutions, LLC to a lawyer in Pittsburgh. A high-powered guy who specialized in setting up shell corporations for wealthy clients. The lawyer, when confronted by the FBI, claimed attorney-client privilege. But Eric had another approach. He showed up at the lawyer's office unannounced. Leon Donahue, the nameplate read. Eric walked past the secretary and into Donahue's office. "Excuse me, you can't," the secretary protested. "It's fine," Eric said, closing the door behind him. Donahue was a sleek man in an expensive suit, mid-50s, with the kind of tan that came from ski trips and golf courses. He looked up, annoyed. "Who are you?" "Eric McKenzie. My daughter was tortured by one of your clients. You set up the financial structure that let them hide millions of dollars from child trafficking." Donahue's expression went carefully neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about." Eric pulled out a folder and dropped it on the desk. Behavioral Solutions, LLC. New Beginnings Holdings. 3 other shell companies in the Caymans. You created them all for Myrtle Savage and Herman Savage. You helped them launder money from torturing and killing kids. I create legal corporate structures for clients. What they do with those structures isn't my responsibility. But you knew. You had to know. Nobody sets up that many shell companies for a small-time religious retreat center unless they're hiding something. Donahue leaned back. Even if that were true, and I'm not saying it is, attorney-client privilege protects my communications with clients. It doesn't protect you from being an accessory to murder. I haven't murdered anyone. No. You just made it possible for others to do it and get away with it. For a fee. Eric leaned forward. How much did they pay you? 10%? 20? How much is a dead kid worth to you? Get out of my office. The FBI is going to tear apart your practice. Every client, every account, every document. And when they're done, you're going to prison right alongside the savages. I doubt that. I have the best lawyers in the state. Eric smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. You know what's funny? I found something interesting while researching you. Your son, Leon Donahue Jr., 15 years old. Troubled kid, from what I hear. Been in and out of therapy. Some minor legal issues. Donahue's face went pale. Don't you dare. I'm not threatening your son. I'm just saying, you helped Myrtle Savage hide the fact that she was torturing troubled kids. Your son is a troubled kid. How would you feel if someone sent him to a place like that? If he ended up in a hole in the ground, crying for his daddy, wondering why you let it happen? You son of a... Think about it. Then think about whether protecting your clients is worth protecting your own son from the same fate. Because people like Myrtle don't stop. They just find new victims. Eric stood up. The FBI will be here tomorrow with warrants. You can cooperate and maybe keep your law license. Or you can fight it and lose everything. Your choice. He left Donahue sitting there, shaking. The next day, Donahue called the FBI. He wanted to make a deal. Within 48 hours, the whole financial structure unraveled. Donahue provided documents showing how the money flowed. Parents paid Behavioral Solutions, which took a cut and passed the rest to New Beginnings Holdings, which distributed to Myrtle, Herman, and Christina. There were also payments to 2 other people, a local sheriff's deputy and a state child services supervisor. The deputy, a man named Kent Booker, had been responding to complaints about Myrtle's property for years. He'd always filed reports saying there was no evidence of wrongdoing. The supervisor, Christy North, had been the one who closed investigations before they could go anywhere. The FBI arrested all of them in coordinated raids. Eric watched the news coverage with Emma on his lap. That's Grandma, Emma said, pointing at footage of Myrtle being led into a courthouse in handcuffs. Yeah, baby. She looks smaller on TV. Evil people always do when they're caught. The trial wouldn't happen for months, but the media coverage was immediate and brutal. Every news outlet ran stories about the torture camp and the Chamber of Horrors in the Pennsylvania mountains. Families of the victims were interviewed. The bodies of the 4 murdered children were given proper burials. Brenda's face was plastered across headlines. Mother who sold children for profit. She tried to claim she was a victim too, that Myrtle had manipulated her. But the evidence was too damning. The FBI had recordings of her conversations with parents, pitching them on the program, describing how effective it was, never mentioning the abuse. Eric filed for divorce and emergency custody. The hearing was brief. Margaret presented evidence of Brenda's involvement in the trafficking ring, her admission of child endangerment, and Emma's statement that she didn't want to see her mother. The judge, not Herman Savage, who'd been suspended pending his own trial, granted Eric full custody with no visitation for Brenda. Mrs. McKenzie has shown a pattern of prioritizing money over her child's safety, the judge said. Until she can demonstrate rehabilitation and remorse, she poses a danger to the minor child. Brenda didn't fight it. She was too busy negotiating her own plea deal. 5 years in federal prison in exchange for testifying against Herman and the others. But Eric wasn't satisfied. Yes, they were all going to prison. Yes, justice was being served. But it wasn't enough. These people had destroyed lives, had murdered children, had made Emma stand in a hole crying for her daddy. They needed to suffer the way their victims had suffered. So Eric started planning. Not a physical attack. He wasn't going to throw away his freedom and leave Emma without a father. But there were other ways to make people suffer. Ways to ensure they lost everything, not just their freedom. He started with Herman Savage. The judge's trial was set for 3 months out. He'd been released on bail, $1 million, which he'd paid easily. He was living in his house, wearing an ankle monitor, pretending to be confident. Eric started following him. Not obviously. He knew how to do surveillance from his army days. He learned Herman's routine: grocery store on Tuesdays, lunch at the same restaurant every Thursday, golf on Saturday mornings. And he noticed something interesting. Herman had visitors. Late at night, people would come to his house. They'd park down the street and walk up. They'd stay for 20 minutes or an hour, then leave. Eric started photographing them, running their plates, building a network. One of them was a state senator. Another was a CEO of a pharmaceutical company. A third was a local businessman who owned half the real estate in town. What connected them? Eric dug deeper and found the answer. They'd all sent their kids to Myrtle's program. All of them had paid premium prices, $50,000 or more. All of them had gotten their kids back fixed. But these weren't troubled kids. These were kids who discovered their parents' secrets. Kids who'd found evidence of affairs, embezzlement, abuse. Kids who'd threatened to tell. Myrtle's program wasn't just about discipline. It was about breaking children who knew too much. Eric felt sick. This was bigger than he'd thought. It wasn't just child abuse. It was organized criminal conspiracy to silence witnesses. And Herman was at the center of it. He needed proof. Real, admissible proof that would stand up in court. So he did something he'd never thought he'd do. He became the thing he'd fought against his entire military career. He broke into Herman's house. It wasn't hard. Herman's security was basic, designed to stop opportunistic burglars, not someone with military training. Eric waited until Herman was at his Thursday lunch, disabled the alarm, and went in through a basement window. He had 30 minutes. He used them well. Herman kept files in his home office. Physical files, the old-fashioned kind that couldn't be hacked. Eric photographed everything. Correspondence with the parents. Contracts. Documentation of what the kids had known and how the program had handled them. One file was labeled Permanent Solutions. Inside were death certificates for 3 children, all ruled accidents or suicides. All kids who'd been through the program. All kids whose parents were in those late-night meetings. Eric felt his hands shake as he photographed them. These people had murdered their own children to keep secrets. He found one more thing. A ledger showing payments from Herman to local media. Payments to kill stories. Payments to reporters to bury information. Payments to keep the whole operation quiet. Eric finished with 5 minutes to spare. He reset everything exactly as he'd found it, slipped out the window, and drove away. That night, he made copies of everything. He sent encrypted files to 3 different people: Derek, Tony Pena, and Agent Morrison at the FBI. The note said, "If anything happens to me, release this to every news outlet in the country." Then he went home and held Emma while she slept, thinking about how close he'd come to losing her. How many other parents had lost their children to these monsters. The next day, he got a call from an unknown number. "Mr. McKenzie, this is Salvatore Bryant. I represent Herman Savage. My client would like to speak with you. Tell your client to go to hell." "Mr. McKenzie, please. This isn't a threat. My client wants to apologize, to explain his side of things. He's prepared to offer a settlement in exchange for—" "There's no settlement. Your client is going to prison for the rest of his life. If you just listen." Eric hung up. 10 minutes later, his phone rang again. A different number. "Mr. McKenzie?" A woman's voice, smooth and professional. "My name is Ingrid Francis. I'm calling on behalf of a group of concerned citizens who would like to resolve this matter quietly. We're prepared to offer you $5 million in exchange for your cooperation in." "Who are you?" "I represent the families of several children who attended Miss Savage's program. They're very sorry for what happened to your daughter. They want to make amends. By paying me to shut up? By compensating you for your trauma and ensuring this matter is resolved in a way that doesn't harm innocent people." "Innocent people? Your clients murdered their own kids. That's a serious allegation without proof. And making such accusations publicly could be considered defamation. Eric laughed. Are you seriously threatening to sue me for defamation? After what you people did? We're offering you a generous settlement, Mr. Mackenzie. I suggest you think carefully before refusing. I don't need to think. The answer is no. Your clients are going to be exposed. Every single one of them. And when I'm done, everyone will know what they did. He hung up and immediately called Morrison. They just tried to buy me off. $5 million. Who did? Someone named Ingrid Francis. Said she represents families of kids who went through the program. They want me to keep quiet about what I found. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Eric, what exactly did you find? I can't tell you that. Not officially. But hypothetically, if someone had evidence that Herman's clients murdered their own children to keep them quiet about crimes, what would the FBI do with that information? Hypothetically, we'd need that evidence to prosecute. And if that evidence was obtained illegally, then it wouldn't be admissible in court. But it might point us toward legal ways to obtain the same information. Check Herman's home office. There's a file cabinet, bottom drawer, labeled Permanent Solutions. You might find something interesting. We need a warrant for that. Then get one. I'm sure you can find probable cause. Eric, just get the warrant, Morrison, before someone makes that file disappear. Morrison must have moved fast because that afternoon, FBI agents executed a search warrant on Herman's house. Eric watched from down the street as they carried out boxes of documents. His phone rang. Morrison, how did you know about that file? I didn't. I just had a hunch. Bullshit. But I don't care. Eric, what we found. Jesus Christ. These people were killing their own kids. I know. We're going to need you to testify. About everything. The program, what happened to Emma, all of it. I'll do whatever it takes. Good. Because we're about to indict 15 more people. This is going to be the biggest child trafficking case in the state's history. Make it count. We will. But Eric, watch your back. These people have a lot to lose. They might do something desperate. Eric thought about that after hanging up. Desperate people were dangerous. But he wasn't worried about himself. He was worried about Emma. He called Derek. I need you to do something for me. Name it. I need you to take Emma somewhere safe. Out of state. Somewhere these people can't find her. You think they'd go after her? I think they've already killed multiple children. I'm not taking chances. I know a place. My cousin has a ranch in Montana. Middle of nowhere. No one would think to look there. Can you leave tomorrow? I'll pick her up at dawn. That night, Eric sat Emma down and explained that she was going on a trip. It's like a vacation. Uncle Derek's going to take you to see horses and mountains. You'll be safe there. Why can't you come? I have to finish something here. But I'll come get you as soon as it's done. I promise. Is it about Grandma? Yeah, baby. It's about making sure she and the people who helped her can't hurt anyone else. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Daddy, are you going to do something bad? What do you mean? Like, something you're not supposed to do. To get the bad people. Eric knelt down to her level. Sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure those choices are the right ones. Okay. But promise you'll come back. I promise. Nothing's going to keep me from you. After Emma left with Derek the next morning, Eric felt the weight of what he was about to do. He'd crossed lines already, breaking and entering illegal surveillance. But what he was planning now was bigger. He was going to expose every single person involved. Not just to the FBI, to the world. He spent the next week compiling evidence. Everything he'd gathered legally and illegally. He organized it into a comprehensive document. Names, dates, evidence of crimes, connections between conspirators. It was 100 pages of damning testimony. Then he sent it to every journalist he'd been in contact with, every news outlet in Pennsylvania, and several national publications. Subject: The Children's Grave Conspiracy. How Pennsylvania's elite used a torture camp to silence their own kids. The response was immediate. Within hours, reporters were calling him. Within a day, the story was on national news. Within a week, it was everywhere. The public reaction was visceral. Protests outside Herman's house. Death threats against everyone involved. The state senator resigned. The CEO was fired. The local businessman's properties were vandalized. And Herman's lawyers called again, desperate this time. Mr. Mackenzie, please. If you'll just agree to meet with my client. No. He wants to confess. To tell you everything. He's willing to testify against the others if you'll speak to him. Eric paused. Why does he want to talk to me specifically? He says, you're the only one who'll understand. That you're a soldier. That you know sometimes people do terrible things for what they think are good reasons. There's no good reason to murder children. Just meet with him. One conversation. If you still want him to rot in prison after that, fine. But give him a chance to explain. Eric thought about it. He didn't want to give Herman anything. But maybe, just maybe, there was information Herman could provide that would help ensure everyone went down. Fine. One conversation. At the FBI office, with agents present. Tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Mackenzie. Thank you. The meeting was surreal. Herman Savage sat across from Eric in an interrogation room, looking like he'd aged 20 years in the last month. His expensive suit hung loose on a frame that had lost weight. His hands shook slightly. Morrison and Chun were there, recording everything. Thank you for coming, Herman said. His voice was hoarse. Don't thank me. I'm here to watch you confess. I will. I'll tell you everything. But first, I want you to understand something. I'm not a monster. I was trying to help people. Eric's jaw tightened. By helping them murder their children? By helping them solve problems. These weren't just any kids, Mr. Mackenzie. They were troubled. Dangerous, even. They knew things that could destroy families, careers, lives. Their parents came to me desperate, and I provided a solution. You provided a death sentence. Not always. Most of the kids survived. They went through the program, learned discipline, and came out better. The ones who died, those were accidents. Myrtle was supposed to be careful, but she got overzealous. Overzealous. Eric slammed his hand on the table. She buried children alive. She starved them. She beat them. I know, and I should have stopped it. But by the time I realized how far it had gone, I was too deep. The parents were powerful people. They would have destroyed me if I'd exposed them. So you let it continue. You let more kids die to save yourself. Herman's face crumpled. I made a mistake. I was weak and scared and greedy. And I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't bring those kids back. I know. That's why I want to testify. I'll tell the FBI everything. Who was involved? Who knew what? Who paid for the permanent solutions? All of it. I'll make sure everyone goes down. In exchange for what? Reduced sentence. Protective custody. I'm a judge, Mr. Mackenzie. I know what happens to people like me in general population. Eric looked at Morrison. Is this deal on the table? Depends on what he gives us. If his information leads to convictions of the others, we might recommend reduced sentence. Eric turned back to Herman. How many kids died? 7 that I know of for certain. But there might be more. Myrtle kept some records off the books. Where are those records? Buried. Literally. On the property. There's a shed out back, under the floorboards. Morrison was already on his phone. Get a team to the Savage property. Northwest shed. Tear up the floorboards. Eric stared at Herman. You knew there were more bodies, and you didn't tell anyone? I was afraid. You're pathetic. You're a coward who let children die to protect yourself. You don't deserve a deal. You deserve to rot. Please, Mr. Mackenzie. I have a conscience. I live with this every day. You know what Emma lives with every day? Nightmares. Fear. The memory of standing in a hole in the freezing cold, thinking she was going to die. You did that. You and your sister and all your rich clients who valued their secrets more than their children's lives. Eric stood up. Give the FBI everything. Every name, every detail. Maybe that'll buy you a few years off your sentence. But nothing's going to buy you redemption. You're going to die knowing you murdered children. He walked out. Morrison caught up with him in the hallway. That was harsh. It was honest. Eric took a breath. Did you get what you needed? Yeah. He's giving us names we didn't have. With his testimony, we can prosecute at least a dozen more people. This is going to be huge, Eric. Good. Make sure it is. Make sure everyone knows what these people did. Over the next month, the arrests continued. The state senator, the CEO, the businessman, 3 more parents who'd paid for permanent solutions, a doctor who'd falsified death certificates, 2 police officers who'd covered up investigations. The media coverage was relentless. Every day brought new revelations. The public was horrified and outraged. Politicians called for reforms. Child welfare organizations demanded investigations. And through it all, Eric waited in Montana with Emma and Derek, watching from a distance as the conspiracy collapsed. When can we go home? Emma asked one evening, sitting by the fireplace in Derek's cousin's ranch house. Soon, baby. When it's safe. Will it ever be safe? Eric pulled her close. Yes. Because all the bad people are going to prison, and they're never going to hurt anyone again. Promise. I promise. But that night, after Emma was asleep, Eric got a call from Morrison. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Two of the parents we arrested made bail. Edward Carlson and Alberto Drew. Both very wealthy, both very connected. And both have disappeared. Eric felt cold dread. Disappeared? Fled the country, we think. Interpol's looking for them, but... Morrison paused. Eric, these guys know you're the one who exposed them. They know Emma's the witness who started this whole thing. I think they might try to retaliate. Let them try. I'm serious. These are desperate men with nothing to lose. You need to stay in Montana until we catch them. How long could that take? Days? Weeks? Maybe months if they're smart. Eric looked at Emma's bedroom door. He'd promised her they'd go home soon. But home wasn't safe. Not yet. I'll stay. But Morrison? You find those men. Find them and bring them back. We will. But 3 weeks passed with no sign of Carlson or Drew. Emma was getting restless, missing her friends and her school. Eric was going stir-crazy, unable to do anything but wait. Then Derek came to him with news. I've been doing some digging. Off the books. I found something. What? Carlson and Drew didn't flee to Europe or South America. They're still in the U.S. And I think I know where. Where? Carlson's family owns property in Alaska. Remote. Off the grid. Perfect place to hide out while their lawyers work on getting the charges dropped. The charges aren't getting dropped. No, but their lawyers are good. They might be able to drag it out for years. Meanwhile, they're living free in the wilderness. Eric felt anger surge. That's not justice. No, it's not. They looked at each other. An understanding passed between them. If someone were to find them, Eric said slowly. Someone who wasn't bound by FBI jurisdiction or legal constraints. Someone who could persuade them to turn themselves in. Hypothetically. Yeah, hypothetically. That someone would need to be very careful. These guys are dangerous. That someone is a ranger. Dangerous is his specialty. Derek smiled. When do we leave? Tomorrow. But Emma stays here. They flew to Alaska, then took a bush plane to the remote region where Carlson's property was located. The pilot dropped them 10 miles from the coordinates Derek had found. You sure about this? The pilot asked. We're sure. Pick us up here in 3 days. The hike was brutal, dense forest, mountains, rivers. But Eric had done worse in Afghanistan. This was just another mission. They found the property on the second day. A large cabin by a lake, solar panels on the roof, smoke rising from the chimney. 2 vehicles parked outside. They're here, Derek confirmed, looking through binoculars. Eric studied the terrain. We go in at night. Non-lethal. Get them restrained. Call Morrison. Wait for extraction. What if they resist? Then we make them not resist. They waited until 0200 hours. The cabin was dark. Eric and Derek approached from different angles, using night vision goggles. The doors were unlocked. These men felt safe out here, far from the law. Eric entered first, moving silently. He found Carlson in a bedroom, asleep. One quick movement, and Carlson was on his stomach with his hands zip-tied behind his back. What the? Shut up. Eric's voice was cold. Make a sound, and I'll knock you unconscious. Carlson shut up. Derek had Drew in the living room, also restrained. They sat the 2 men on the couch. You know who we are? Eric asked. You're Mackenzie, Drew said. The soldier. You're the one who ruined everything. I'm the one who exposed you for murdering your children. That's not the same thing. We didn't murder anyone. Yeah, you did. You sent your kids to be tortured and killed because they knew your secrets. Because you valued your reputations more than their lives. Carlson spoke up. My son was going to destroy me. He found evidence of my affairs, my financial crimes. He was going to turn me in. I had no choice. There's always a choice. Eric leaned in close. You chose wrong. And now you're going to pay for it. You can't prove anything. Our lawyers will get us off. I don't need to prove anything. The FBI has Herman's testimony. They have the financial records. They have the bodies. You're going to prison for the rest of your lives. We'll see about that, Drew said. We have resources. Friends in high places. Not anymore. Everyone's abandoning you. The senators already pled guilty. The CEO's cooperating. Your friends are rats fleeing a sinking ship. Eric pulled out a satellite phone. Now you're going to make a choice. You can turn yourselves in voluntarily and maybe get a deal. Or I can drag you back in handcuffs. Either way, you're going back. And if we refuse? Carlson asked. Eric smiled. It was the same smile he'd given enemy combatants who thought they were tough. Then I'll make you wish you'd never run. I'm not a cop. I'm not bound by the same rules. And I really, really don't like you. He let that sink in. Then he added, but here's the thing. I don't want to hurt you. I want you to face justice. I want you to stand trial and be convicted and spend the rest of your lives thinking about what you did. That's real punishment. That's what you deserve. Carlson and Drew looked at each other. Then Carlson said, what kind of deal? Testify against everyone involved. Every name, every crime, every detail. In exchange, maybe you get 20 years instead of life. That's not much of a deal. It's more than you deserve. It's more than your kids got. Silence. Then Drew nodded. Okay, we'll turn ourselves in. But we want it in writing. Call Morrison yourself. Tell him where you are. He'll arrange transport and a plea agreement. Eric handed Drew the satellite phone. Watched as he made the call. Watched as these two men who'd thought they were above the law surrendered. The FBI extracted them 2 days later. Eric and Derek watched from a distance as helicopters took Carlson and Drew away. Mission accomplished? Derek asked. Not yet. Not until they're all convicted and locked away. You know they might not all go to prison. Good lawyers, technicalities, deals. Then I'll make sure they suffer in other ways. These people destroyed Emma's childhood. They murdered children. They don't get to walk away. They flew back to Montana. Emma was waiting, and she ran into Eric's arms. I missed you, Daddy. I missed you too, baby. So much. Can we go home now? Eric looked at Derek, who nodded. The immediate threat was gone. Carlson and Drew were in custody. The others were too afraid or too broke to run. Yeah, we can go home. They returned to Pennsylvania a week later. The house felt empty without Brenda, but Emma didn't seem to mind. She was just happy to be back in her own room with her own things. Eric enrolled her in a new school, farther from town. Fresh start. New friends who didn't know about the scandal. Therapy twice a week to help her process the trauma. And slowly, painfully, they built a new life. The trial started 6 months after Emma's rescue. Myrtle was first. The prosecution laid out a damning case. Physical evidence of the graves, testimony from surviving children, financial records proving it was a criminal enterprise. Myrtle's defense tried to claim she was helping troubled children, that the deaths were accidental, that she'd been pressured by her brother Herman. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts. For consecutive life sentences without parole. Herman's trial was next. His lawyers tried to paint him as a victim of his sister's manipulation. But with his own testimony about arranging permanent solutions, it was hopeless. Guilty. Life without parole. Christina Slaughter got 20 years for conspiracy and obstruction. Kent Booker, the deputy, got 15. Christy North, the supervisor, got 10. Brenda's trial was the hardest for Eric to watch. She looked small and broken on the stand, crying as she described how she'd been desperate for money, how she believed her mother's lies about helping children. The prosecutor wasn't sympathetic. He showed the jury recordings of Brenda pitching the program to parents, described the $100,000 she'd made, detailed the suffering of the children she'd sent. Emma didn't attend the trial. She was too young, and the lawyers agreed her testimony via video deposition was enough. But Eric was there every day, watching the mother of his child be convicted of conspiracy to commit child abuse. 5 years. She'd serve at least 3 before parole eligibility. The other parents' trials dragged on for another year. Carlson and Drew, true to their word, testified against everyone. The state senator got life. The CEO got 30 years. The businessman got 25. In total, 23 people were convicted in connection with the New Beginnings conspiracy. Hundreds of years of prison time. Millions in restitution to the victims' families. But for Eric, the real victory was watching Emma heal. Slowly, the nightmares faded. She started smiling again, making jokes, playing with friends. She was still affected by what happened, probably always would be, but she was surviving. Thriving, even. 2 years after the rescue, Eric sat in family court for the final hearing. The judge, a woman who'd reviewed all the evidence, all the testimonies, looked down at him and Emma. Mr. Mackenzie, you've done an admirable job raising your daughter under extremely difficult circumstances. The court finds that you are a fit and loving parent. Ms. Mackenzie's parental rights are hereby permanently terminated. Full custody is granted to you. Emma squeezed his hand. Does this mean Mom can't take me back? Never, Eric said. You're mine forever. That night, they had a quiet celebration at home. Pizza, ice cream, a movie. Just the two of them. The way it had been for 2 years now. Daddy, Emma asked during the movie. Yeah, baby. Thank you for saving me. Eric pulled her close. You don't have to thank me. That's what dads do. Not all dads. Some of those kids, their dads were the bad ones. I know. And I'm sorry they didn't have someone to protect them. But you made sure the bad guys got punished. You made sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. I tried. You did more than try. You won. Eric thought about that. He'd won, yes. But at what cost? His marriage was over. His daughter was traumatized. Families were destroyed. Lives were lost. But Emma was alive. She was healing. She was safe. And the people who'd hurt her were locked away forever. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was victory. 5 years later, Eric stood in the backyard of their new house. A smaller place in a better neighborhood, closer to Emma's school. She was 12 now, tall and confident, captain of her soccer team. The nightmares were rare. The therapy had worked. She was going to be okay. Donald Gillespie came over for a barbecue, as he did every month or so. They'd become close friends after everything. Don had retired from the force, citing disillusionment with the system that had let the savages operate for so long. How's she doing? Don asked, watching Emma play with the neighbor's dog. Good. Great, actually. Straight A's, lots of friends, happy. You'd never know. But you know. Yeah, I know. Eric flipped a burger. Got a letter from Brenda last week. What did she say? That she's sorry. That she's been sober for 2 years. That she wants to see Emma when she gets out. When is that? Next year if she makes parole. What are you going to tell her? I'm going to tell Emma. Let her decide. She's old enough now to make that choice. Don nodded. That's fair. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Don said, You know, I think about those kids sometimes. The ones who didn't make it. Sarah, Marcus, the others. I wonder what they'd be doing now if they'd lived. Me too. You did good, Eric. You made sure their deaths meant something. You made sure no one could ignore what happened. Doesn't bring them back. No, but it stopped it from happening to more kids. That's worth something. Eric looked at his daughter, laughing and healthy and alive. Yeah, it is. That night, after Don left and Emma was asleep, Eric sat on the porch with a beer, thinking about the last 5 years. The trials, the convictions, the slow rebuilding of his life. He thought about Myrtle, rotting in a maximum security prison. About Herman, who'd been attacked by other inmates and lost the use of his left eye. About Brenda, who'd written monthly letters that Eric rarely answered. He thought about the parents who'd sent their children to die. Some were in prison. Some had lost everything even without conviction. All of them would carry the shame for the rest of their lives. And he thought about the children. The 7 who'd died. The dozens who'd survived but were scarred. Emma, who'd been hours away from becoming another statistic. Justice had been served. The guilty had been punished. The conspiracy had been exposed and destroyed. But Eric knew the truth. This would happen again somewhere else. Different names, different place, same evil. People who valued money and power over children's lives. People who thought they were untouchable. His job was to make sure Emma was ready for a world like that. To teach her to be strong, to be smart, to fight back against evil in all its forms. She was already well on her way. Smart, tough, compassionate. She volunteered at a children's shelter now, helping kids who'd been through trauma. She said it helped her process her own experiences. Eric was proud of her. Prouder than he'd ever been of anything he'd accomplished in the military. His phone buzzed. A text from Derek. Saw the news. Another child abuse case in Ohio. Similar setup. Thought you should know. Eric stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back. Send me the details. Because justice was never finished. Evil was never completely defeated. But someone had to stand against it. Someone had to fight for the children who couldn't fight for themselves. And Eric McKenzie would always be that someone. He'd proven it once. He'd do it again if he had to. For Emma. For Sarah. For all the children who deserved better than the world had given them. He'd won this battle. He'd win the next one too. He always did. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.